In 1925, Paris was buzzing. The city was healing from the Great War, and its most famous landmark, the Eiffel Tower, was starting to look a little rusty. Originally built as a temporary structure for the 1889 World's Fair, whispers had started circulating that its time was up. People openly debated whether it was an eyesore that should be torn down. The Eiffel Tower was facing an identity crisis. Luckily, a man with 45 aliases and questionable morals was there to help it find a new owner. This is the story of Victor Lustig, one of the most audacious con artists who ever lived. He wasn't just a petty thief. He was a master of psychology, a chameleon who could blend into high society with unnerving ease. Born in the Austro-Hungarian Empire, Lustig was fluent in multiple languages and possessed a charm that could disarm even the most skeptical. By the time he arrived in Paris in the spring of 1925, he had already built a career conning wealthy passengers on transatlantic ocean liners. But he was ready for his masterpiece. Reading a small newspaper article about the Eiffel Tower's maintenance problems, a light bulb didn't just go off in Lustig's head. It was a full-blown Parisian fireworks display. The public was already primed to believe the tower's removal was plausible. All he needed was a stage, a script, and a cast of unsuspecting victims. Lustig's plan was simple in its audacity, but complex in its execution. He began by spending a considerable sum of money to forge high-quality, official-looking government stationery. He presented himself as the Deputy Director General of the Ministry of Posts and Telegraphs, a completely fabricated title that sounded just important enough to be real. Using this forged letterhead, he sent confidential invitations to 6 of the most prominent scrap metal dealers in Paris. Letters were intentionally vague, hinting at a lucrative but highly secretive government contract. He summoned them to a meeting at the Hotel de Crillon, one of the most luxurious and exclusive hotels in the city, knowing the opulent setting would add a layer of legitimacy to his charade. As the dealers gathered in a lavishly rented suite, Lustig, impeccably dressed and radiating an air of bored bureaucracy, began his performance. He spoke of the overwhelming engineering challenges and the astronomical costs of maintaining the Eiffel Tower. "Gentlemen," he'd say, his voice low and confidential, "the public is not yet aware. A decision of this magnitude could cause a significant outcry. Therefore, the government requires absolute discretion. This delicate operation requires a certain understanding." The dealers were stunned, but the logic seemed sound. The tower was old, it was expensive, and Lustig's presentation was flawless. He took them on a tour of the Eiffel Tower, not to inspect the structure itself, but to gauge their enthusiasm and, more importantly, to size them up. He was a predator, and he was looking for the weakest member of the herd. He found his mark in a man named André Poisson. Poisson was a newer player in the Parisian business scene, eager to make a name for himself and break into the elite inner circle. He was ambitious but insecure, a perfect combination for Lustig to exploit. Poisson submitted the highest bid, desperate to land the deal of a lifetime. But Lustig added one final brilliant twist. After Poisson's bid was accepted, Lustig arranged a follow-up meeting. He confided in Poisson, sighing as if burdened by a dirty secret. He complained about his meager government salary and the pressures of his position, subtly hinting that big deals like this often required a little extra grease to move smoothly through the bureaucratic machine. He was asking for a bribe. For Poisson, this was the final confirmation. The request for a bribe, far from raising suspicion, actually made the scam feel more authentic. It was exactly how he imagined a corrupt government official would behave. Reassured, Poisson handed over not only the massive payment for the scrap rights, but also a hefty cash bribe to secure the deal. It was a briefcase full of cash. The moment the money was in his hands, Lustig didn't walk, he ran. He took the first available train out of Paris, heading straight for Vienna with his newfound fortune. He laid low, indulging in the finest hotels and luxuries, checking the Parisian newspapers every day. He was waiting for the explosive headline announcing the massive fraud. But the days turned into weeks and there was nothing. Silence. Why? Because André Poisson was too embarrassed. He had been so completely and utterly duped that revealing the scam would mean revealing his own gullibility. He would be a laughingstock in the business community he so desperately wanted to join. His silence was Lustig's get-out-of-jail-free card. Seeing that he had gotten away with it so cleanly, Lustig's incredible arrogance took over. A month later, he returned to Paris. He reassembled his forged documents. booked the same suite at the Hotel de Crillon and invited a different group of 6 scrap metal dealers to sell them the exact same story. He was going to sell the Eiffel Tower a second time. It was an act of pure, unadulterated nerve. This time, however, his plan hit a snag. As he was laying the groundwork with his new set of marks, one of the dealers grew suspicious. Perhaps Lustig's story was a little too polished, or maybe the dealer was just more cautious. He decided to check with the government directly. Of course, the Ministry of Posts and Telegraphs had no idea what he was talking about. The dealer went straight to the police. But before they could act, Lustig, with his uncanny sixth sense for danger, caught wind of the investigation and fled the country just in time, heading for the United States. In America, Lustig continued his criminal career, becoming a master counterfeiter. He was so skilled that his fake $100 bills, known as Lustig money, were good enough to fool even bank tellers. He circulated hundreds of thousands of dollars, destabilizing local economies and drawing the intense focus of the Secret Service. They pursued him for years, but he always seemed to be one step ahead, using his collection of aliases and his uncanny ability to disappear. His luck finally ran out in 1935. After a high-speed car chase, federal agents cornered him. Even then, he almost talked his way out of it, but a key found in his possession led them to a locker containing the evidence they needed: the engraving plates for his counterfeit bills. He was arrested, but his story wasn't over. The day before his trial, he faked an illness, and when guards came to his cell, he escaped from the federal detention headquarters in New York City by tying bedsheets together and climbing out a window, waving nonchalantly to onlookers on the street below. He was recaptured a month later in Pittsburgh. This time there would be no escape. Victor Lustig was sentenced to 20 years in the most secure prison ever built, Alcatraz. He would spend the rest of his life on the Rock, surrounded by the country's most dangerous criminals. He died there from pneumonia in 1947. His death certificate listed his occupation as apprentice salesman. Victor Lustig didn't just sell a landmark. He sold the very idea of trust. He sold ambition, insecurity, and the dream of getting ahead. He understood human nature better than almost anyone, and he used that understanding to orchestrate one of the most unbelievable cons in history. And for a while he got away with murder of your wallet. The Eiffel Tower, of course, still stands, a monument not just to French engineering, but to the man who had the audacity to try and sell it. Twice. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this incredible story, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more tales of history's most fascinating characters. See you next time.